Hello, this is U.S. immigration attorney Hardam Tripathi from Trip Law. Today we're going to speak with you about the differences between getting a green card as an immigrant who is married to a United States citizen, either through adjustment of status or consular processing. Now today we're going to really focus on consular processing. We get a lot of clients every other day who are either overseas or are in the United States and they want to get their green cards and they're married to their loved ones, either their spouse who is a man or a woman who is ultimately petitioning them to get their green card. And we have one of two circumstances. One of which is where they are actually actively in the United States as the immigrant and they're visiting their spouse as a immigrant who's here on some sort of visa of some sort, or they may be overseas waiting to be with their loved one and be reunified with their loved one here in the great United States of America. Now, one big thing is there's always a difference. We always get a question, well, what's the biggest and best way to get here in the United States? Well, if they're already in the United States, we usually recommend to our clients that adjustment of status is the best option. However, what do we do in times of COVID? What do we do where there's times of political strife, or there's times where there's issues going on all over the globe where you are stuck as an immigrant in your home country? How then do you reunify with your loved one that you rightfully deserve to be here with in these great United States of America? Well, in that regard, you would have to utilize the consular processing application process with respect to the United States Department of State process. A lot of our clients are always wondering, what is the difference between consular processing versus adjustment of status? Well, that's a really great question. Consular processing is a whole different aspect or a whole different process as compared to adjustment of status. Now, as a U.S. immigration attorney here at Trip Law, we do our best to make sure we get the just outcomes that you deserve as that immigrant wanting to reunify with your family, be with your loved ones, and live that American dream. Well, here's what we do. If you were overseas, then the consular processing aspect is for you more likely than not. If you're here in the United States, already here on a visa with your loved one, then usually adjustment of status does prevail. So let's talk about consular processing. That's what's going to be the meat and potatoes of this actual video today. And we, as your attorneys or attorneys that are trying to look out for your best interests, we really respect and love the consular processing process. Usually the U.S. State Department does a really great job at processing your application pretty quick, usually quicker than it is done at Department of Homeland Security and the adjustment of status process. So what is consular processing? Consular processing is basically a process where those who are overseas in their home country who are trying to reunify with their loved ones, their U.S. citizen spouse, and they're trying to get with their U.S. citizen spouse, they utilize consular processing. Consular processing is through the State Department. It is a process where you as an immigrant are able to process your State Department application along with USCIS in conjunction with, to ultimately make sure that you are with your loved one in hopefully a reasonable amount of time. The way this process works is you would hire an attorney such as ourselves, and we'd be more than happy to assist you with that. And how that process goes is that ultimately you have to file what is called an I-130 or an I-140 if it is applicable with USCIS, which is through the Department of Homeland Security, and USCIS stands for the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. What you have to do is you ultimately have to file this I-130 application that basically shows that the person who is petitioning for you, that U.S. citizen, that your spouse, who's petitioning for you as that immigrant, who's in that home country of yours, that you do have a bona fide relationship, that you are truly married in love and have a bona fide, non-fraudulent, and based on love relationship. What we as your attorneys would do, we would love to make sure that we fill out this application correctly, that we file it with USCIS. Once USCIS takes that application and they look at that application, there's supporting documentation they will have, such as your marriage certificate, such as elements of your birth certificate, your ultimate green card or documents that you've had in the past with respect to your spouse. If they don't have a green card and they're born through actual, being born in the United States, and then their actual passport, all that will be on the spouse's side, the U.S. citizen spouse side. All those documents are very important, because ultimately what will end up happening is those green cards, those passports, those birth certificates, those marriage certificates, those social security cards, all these elements that are very much documentarily oriented will be on the side of that U.S. citizen. But now, what does that mean for you as the immigrant? Well, as the immigrant, you are also going to have to provide certain documentation, right? So for that I-130, there's going to be documentation provided from your end as well. We will make sure we provide that documentation to the United States Department of Homeland Security's USCIS. Once that USCIS agency does do their initial review and they realize that you're someone that is indeed related to, as a spouse, to that U.S. citizen petitioner, what will end up happening is that they will give your application to the NVC. The NVC stands for National Visa Center. This center is based out of New Hampshire, and what they're going to do is they're going to work on behalf of the U.S. State Department. They will make sure that your application is now in the hands of the U.S. State Department, and that you, as that immigrant, your process is started on the State Department side. Now, what we do as your attorney is we're also going to make sure that we keep you attuned with everything that's going on with your application. We want to make sure that you're doing a great job as well in terms of providing all the documentation that is necessary to the State Department with respect to NVC. So at this point, what will end up happening is the NVC is going to conduct their review of the application. They're going to schedule a time and a place and a manner where you will then be afforded the opportunity to actually go to a U.S. consulate or a U.S. embassy abroad in your home country and ultimately provide that interview. Now, what happens between the time that you have gone from submitting everything from USCIS through your U.S. petitioner spouse to the actual moment where you are trying to sign up for an opportunity to interview at that U.S. embassy or consulate? Basically, what ends up happening, especially in these times, as of this recording and of this video, COVID-19 has been a very big pandemic, and it's actually created a lot of disturbances in terms of processing times. So you may see shortages of staff at these embassies or consulates. You may see longer processing times. This is why it's so important to have an attorney. It's important to have an attorney who is attuned with these processes, who has connections with congressional staff who will help you expedite these processes, and also an attorney who actually keeps you abreast of everything that's going on with respect to your case. And so ultimately what will end up happening is that once that process happens, they've reviewed your I-140 or your I-130, it's gone through the USCIS process, it will then go through the NVC reviews it, then it comes down to interviewing time. Now, here's one big thing about the interviewing. Between the time that you submit everything to USCIS and the time that USCIS sends it to NVC, there are other elements at play. You have to make sure that there's COVID-19 sort of vaccinations that are being met. You have to make sure that your I-693 medical record is being submitted. You have to make sure that there's no travel in and out of the country that could have harmed your application. There's a lot of external factors that come into play, which is why it's very key to have an immigration attorney who's making sure that all your I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And so ultimately what we end up doing is we work with you from cradle to grave. We make sure that we speak with the State Department as well to make sure your process is being expedited. Especially during these times where travel can be very difficult, we aim to make sure that you as that immigrant are reunited and reunified with your family member, because we understand that COVID has had an impact. The government should not have one on you. And so ultimately, once that whole process goes through, we aid with your fingerprinting processes, we aid with your biometrics, we aid with your medical records, and then ultimately what ends up happening after that is you ultimately get an interview at your embassy or consulate abroad. At that interview and consulate abroad, we aim to make sure you are very prepared for that interview. They will ask you questions about your life, your story, kind of what brings you to America. This is a very important interview that you want to be prepared for. This is where we as your attorneys will make sure that every I is dotted, like we had aforementioned. Once that happens, you go to your interview, you make sure you bring all your packets with you. You're making sure that you can even actually schedule a date at the actual embassy or consulate abroad. Once you pass your interview, what will end up happening is that then you will be afforded the opportunity to get an I-551 stamp actually in your passport, where they will stamp it, and then you have every right to then come to these great United States of America. When you come to these great United States of America at the actual CBP process, what we will also do is we will make sure that once you get here, you are then afforded the opportunity to adjust that status then to actually getting your green card. And once you have your green card with your loved one, you're ready to rock and roll. This is where you can now sign up to get your Social Security card. We will help you with that with respect to state and local governments and federal governments at large. We will also make sure that you are now able to apply for Medicare benefits and things of that nature. These are things that most lawyers, tend to sometimes not think about. But we at Trip Law understand what benefits are important to you as your family. Benefits make you a better citizen eventually, that you will be as part of our communities. So ultimately, we prepare you to be that best citizen once you get that green card. Once you actually get into America, you ultimately get to apply for a lot of great opportunities here. And that's where your whole process ends from that green card perspective. So that is the whole consular processing aspect of it. There's a lot of other parts that we would encourage you to reach out to us for. Now, a lot of people ask us, what's the difference between getting that green card through consular processing versus through adjustment of status? Well, it's a whole different process, right? Adjustment of status is when you're already here in the United States, while consular processing is while you're in your home country. So while you're in consular processing, you're actually doing the whole process in that home country. You're going through the embassy, you're going through the consulate, you're getting that 551 stamp, you're getting all your medical records done, you're coming to America, and you're ultimately living that American dream once you get here. But with adjustment of status, you're already here. You're already visiting your family, you're here on a visa, and now you want to apply. Well, in that regard, you still have to file that I-130 that we had just talked about a little bit ago in this video. And then after that, you have to do an I-485, which is an adjustment of status application. There's an I-864 and I-864A, if applicable, applications involving sponsorships, involving financial hardships. So this is it's a very delicate process. And with adjustment of status, you also get to apply while you're already here for a work permit. An EAD is what they call it. An employment authorization document, aka a work permit. These are also other documents we would assist you with. And there's also these I-131s, these re-entry permits that you would apply for as a green card holder. So, as applying for green cards, there's a lot of these things that could ultimately change your life as that person who is trying to get reunified with your loved one. So we understand here at Trip Law that you've already struggled a lot trying to go through this immigration process. Let us do you one and help you even further and try to get you out of all this mess that is this diplomatic and bureaucratic process that is immigration. We look forward to servicing you. Whether it be consular processing or adjustment of status, make sure you get a lawyer, make sure you file the proper documents, make sure you understand the process. We'd be more than happy to give you a complimentary evaluation to address your case and your matter. But above all, we just want to make sure you're safe, that you understand the process and you come here safely, and ultimately that you have an attorney of record who is willing to protect you at all costs. So thank you very much. We hope that you found this nugget a little important, just a little bit closer to your American dream. So we wish you the best with your immigration journey. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathi from Trip Law. You can reach us at 863-370-2427, or you can reach us at info@trip-law.com. Thank you very much for your time, and wishing you the best with your consular processing or adjustment of status journey to get your green card, to live that American dream. Thank you.